We have some breaking news on the race for the Fed chair job. Our senior economics reporter, Steve Liesman, joins us with the details. Really?
Good morning, Becky. Senior administration officials telling CNBC that Fed Governor Chris Waller had a, quote, strong interview with President Trump in which the two discussed the labor market in depth and how to jumpstart job creation. The interview took place in the president's residence and concluded shortly before the president stepped to the podium and addressed the nation on the economy on national television Wednesday night. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Chief of Staff Susie Weil, and Deputy Chief of Staff Dan Scavino also attended the interview. It's a sign Waller's candidacy is being taken seriously, though the officials declined to say if he's the front runner or where he stood in the whole race for the Fed chair job. CNBC also learned BlackRock's Rick Rieder will be interviewed at Mar-a-Lago for the Fed chair job in the last week of the year. The official said that leaves 4 candidates, including NEC Director Kevin Hassett, the favorite for the job in the prediction markets, and former Fed Governor Kevin Warsh, who had been previously interviewed by the president. The officials added that Fed Governor and Vice Chair of Bank Supervision Michelle Bowman no longer being considered for the job. Now, the official said the conversation about jobs with Waller showed criticism was misplaced that the president was seeking a candidate based on the criteria that the next Fed chair would follow the president's orders on race. They said the president's interest in the interviews with candidates was broad-based across a series of economic issues. On a lighter note, the president was said to have been seriously impressed when informed that Governor Waller could bench press 350 pounds.
You know, you always bring us the details that matter, and that's no, I'm not saying that sarcastically. Like, those are like those little details that bring you inside the room.
I heard in awe was what I heard.
In awe.
In awe. I heard that from a separate source.
That's
I've
a lot.
seen Waller. I'm actually surprised and impressed by that, too.
Yeah. Governor Waller has a pretty strict workout regime, is my understanding.
Okay, so all of these reports, all of this kind of what we're seeing now with these interviews is all to counter what the president himself has repeatedly said, that he had somebody in mind, that he knew who it was going to be.
So that and the idea that the president wanted somebody who was only going to listen to him on rates, they're definitely emphasizing that there's more interest, more discussion on broader economic topics in these interviews than just, are you going to listen to me? We continue to hear that. And look,
But again, I think this is not to counter reporting that's been out there. This is to counter what the president himself has said.
Becky, I think you're hitting on something that has amused me, that sometimes the president is not his own best friend. Yeah. Right? Like when he sat there and with the affordability stuff in the background, then he called affordability a hoax. You could imagine people around the president kind of cringing in those situations, you know, when they thought they were. Remember the great constant theme of Infrastructure Week? Yeah. That was going to be an infrastructure week and never quite was. And sometimes the president is not his own best friend, but we can report with certainty that they did discuss jobs. It wasn't all about, are you going to lower rates and listen to me?
Is the president himself not locked in? Is that the message you're getting back, that he's not locked in on one candidate and he's still waiting and going through these interviews, and we will see where he feels a month from now?
That is. You can read this online, Becky, and so can viewers, by the way, that this is a serious process following. Look, I was surprised a couple weeks ago when the president on Air Force One said, I know who it is, and then we were able to report that interviews were canceled. I don't know if you remember, but I guess it was back in October, I was able to break the story of the process that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had laid out. Yeah. And it looked like one that, by the way, is both real and symbolic, right? Because this pick for Fed chair is something being watched down the road at Wall Street, but 5,000 miles away in every financial center anywhere around the world, and in Japan. Not only who is picked, but the how it's picked matters a lot. It always has. I've done, I think, 4 or 5 of these processes over the past several decades.
It reminds me a lot of what we're hearing with Warner Brothers Discovery and the bids that have come in for this. Is the president actually in the camp of the Ellison bid from Skydance, right, or from Paramount Skydance, or is he saying, no, I'm not in that camp, and if it's Netflix and it's an American company, I'm good with that, too. I'm good for whatever shows up. A lot of this is process to undo things that have been said, again, not by the press or anybody around him, but by the president himself in front of cameras.
That is an accurate point, Becky. And I think the other thing is that when they are now back on track with this process. The president is sitting down with these candidates. He's going to sit down with Rick Reeder.
Okay.
And I don't know.
I think Wall Street probably appreciates hearing that.
I think they probably
getting a good.
Yeah, especially I think the Waller-Reeder people are because I think there's a lot of.
And you don't think, I mean, there are these other people who speculate this is all not theater, but, you know, that he's got the selection, but that he also wants to suggest that there is a process so that he can say that he's looked at everybody.
You know, Andrew, if that's the case, they're going through an awful lot of hoops to jump.
With the most
you know, you get these key people that are running the U.S. government in a room to talk to a guy for however long, I couldn't determine how long it went. For theater, I don't know.
I'd get mad if I was wasting hours and hours of my time, and I'm not the president. So.
Yeah, I mean, if the president wants to cut it off, and it will be his choice, and I know people around him don't know who he's going to pick yet. I do think. But are
you saying he doesn't know who he's going to pick?
I don't think he. You know, I don't think so. I think he wants to meet with these people, and he wants to talk with them. And look, there's another sign in all this that the president is maybe a little more concerned about what's happening in the job market. The job numbers have not been good. Right. And he needs to turn his attention to that, and they need to figure that out.